Hi there, crafty friends. This is Irene with Artemis Made, and I have a very special card to show you today because this is an anniversary card for my hubster. So here I'm showing you the products I used, an array of Distress Oxides, this beautiful sunflower cover plate from Simon Says Stamp, and Tim Holtz wood grain Distress cardstock. I love the wood grain cardstock. It's so nice to have it already, have that pattern. So here I'm taking my Nina Classic Crest Solar White cardstock, and I didn't really measure. I just cut off a piece that I knew would fit to be able to cut my cover piece. I get it down onto my magic mat, but it's wiggling, so I need a little bit of assistance. Thank you, Sticky. He's here to give me some mint tape from scrapbook.com, which is my favorite, and I'm just gonna stick it down here, make sure I've got it all in place, and run it through my die cutting machine. Now you can see here is a rather intricate die cut. It's not the most intricate by any means, but it does have very small pieces. So if you notice, this is a little trick I like to do. It's like a piece of packing foam kind of underneath. I use it to with a pokey tool, and I poke into it so I can push against that cardstock without hurting it in any kind of way. Really helps. So here I'm leaving this whole process in for this one flower where I am using that same scrapbook.com mint tape, and I am masking off different areas of the die cut. And I'm doing that just so I can expose the one flower. And I've covered up everything around it. I'm going to use these smaller Simon Says Stamp brushes so I can get into the different nooks and crannies of this flower. Now I really wanted a beautiful fall look, so I am doing a few different versions of sunflower colors. And then you notice I just grabbed my waffle flower shader brushes as well in the size 0 because I want to get in and just do a little bit of shading on the inside too. So once I finish putting together the colors on my one flower, then I'm going to put a little bit more masking around the leaf so I can show you what I did here. So I used 2 colors on the leaves. I did mowed lawn for a base, just a nice green base, and then I went in with rustic wilderness around the very bottom of the flower and going up through the veining just a little bit. And I did the same thing on this one as well, just a mowed lawn and then rustic wilderness on the stems and on the little bit of the base of each leaf and the veining. So I thought that I gave it a little bit more dimension as well, kind of a two-tone look. So here I'm going in with a lighter color, mustard seed for some yellow, and I'm going to go around and blend the outside of this with dried marigold. I really love doing multicolored flowers. I just think it makes it such a rich palette. And the Distress Oxides, I mean, come on, they're just the perfect ink. They're so wonderful to use, and they give such a rich, vibrant display of color, and it just makes my heart happy. And come on, these colors, oh, just gorgeous. So if you notice here, I'm doing a few different versions of coloring for my sunflowers. I did the first one where it was mostly, one color. The second one was a kind of a two-tone. This one, I've got a really deep interior color, and then I'm also going around the edges and making those the same color as the interior. So it's kind of like color from the outside in as well as from the inside out. I just love that flower. I think it's so pretty. And I used ripe persimmon on that one. Now, if you notice, I missed when I masked that little tiny edge of the petal. So I'm very carefully edging it again and going in with the little shader brush to put some yellow and then to put some of the ripe persimmon over the top. And no one will be the wiser except you, but shh, don't tell. So on this next flower here, I went in with some festive berry, and I did it because I wanted it to be opposite the other corner. So I kind of did, a red on one corner, and then I did a red on the other corner. But I didn't keep it the exact same color palette. I did the red, and then I did the orange on the inside, but much wider than the other side. Now, the middle flower here, I kind of looked around the whole of the other 4 and said, okay, what do I need to do? And I thought, you know what, I could brighten this just a little bit more. So instead of doing a really dark tone and then a little bit light in the middle, I went light on the outside, light on the inside, and then just that little bit of the color going into each petal. So I thought that was a really interesting way to do it too. And I had fun using my color and my shader brush in this way to give that really beautiful sunburst effect, I guess you could call it. So now I am done with my flowers, so I am going in and coloring up my wood grain cardstock. I really love this wood grain cardstock. I've used it many, many times, and it has a great texture to it. It really does have an excellent wood grain look to it, as you can tell. I wasn't quite sure at first how dark I wanted to go. I thought I wanted it darker on the outside, lighter in the middle. So I did kind of keep that idea, but I also went darker than I originally planned because I really thought it was going to be a nice contrast against all those yellows and oranges. Now I want to cover up the outside frame of that die, the cover die, with gold. So I'm going to do a gold frame that matches the die. The only thing is, if I did this again, I would make the frame a bit bigger because it's the exact same size right now as that outside frame, and that was very hard to line up. I think I needed like an instruction manual to make it work because it was challenging. So I am not perfectly aligned here, but that's when I use this little trick where I grab my reverse tweezers and you can pinch together very thin sides so that it kind of like pushes them together when your fingers just can't do the trick. So now I've decided I want to do a little bit of white spatter with my Amsterdam, I think it's titanium white ink. I'm basically here just going to gently spatter onto the cardstock and onto the glass board and onto my arms and onto my face and onto my laptop and so on and so forth. So yeah, this was a little bit tragic as I gave it a shot, but I actually ended up loving it. I even those bigger spatters, I love those. I think they were great. And when it first went down, it was more cream colored, and you may have noticed. But as it dried back, it really did dry back mostly white. So I was really happy with that. Now I put out some foam tape strips from scrapbook.com and then some low loft foam squares from Simon Says Stamp, and I am putting them on the back of the flowers and on the back of some of the leaves. This card will not be going through the mail. Like I said, it's for my hubby, so I am just going to kind of give it a little bit more dimension, a little bit more zhuzh. Now, as for my zhuzh, you can see how horribly aligned that was. Look at that. Oh, it's terrible. So I decided I needed to be smarter than the cardstock and actually redo this. So I gently peeled it back apart. I was worried I'd ruined it at this point after all that work, but thankfully it was not ruined. So I lined it up the other way. This time I put the wood grain cardstock on top of the cover die rather than putting the cover die on the wood cardstock. This made more sense to me, and it lined up beautifully. So here is what the cover piece is going to look like. Now I'm going to use my scoreboard just to fold down an A2 card. It was already pre-scored, so I'm just going to fold it down there. And now I'm using a trick by Natasha Foote, where I am just peeling back some of the edges of my tape here, my double-sided tape. And I'm still going to use my scoreboard just to get it really nicely lined up in the edge there. It really helps so that I don't have another faux pas like trying to put the cover onto the wood. That was a terrible idea. So this is the really smart way to do it because you actually have that edge you can work with. Now I'm using my Simon Says Stamp sentiment labels, and I believe these sentiment strips or pages are from, I want to say Paper Rose, but I could be mistaken. I will link below the company it is, so I apologize if that's not right, but I will link it for you. Now, I am going with a sentiment that says, "You are my sunshine." So, little fun fact, my husband and I are celebrating 14 years this week, and our wedding colors were persimmon and sunshine. So, and our flowers were sunflowers. So, I am using a lot of the right persimmon, Distress Oxide, and the sentiment says, "You are my sunshine," and of course the sunflowers. So, this is definitely a tribute to the man who is my absolute best friend in the world. I love you so much, and I thank you for all of your support. Just a little shout out to my husband. So here you go. I'm auditioning at first where to put the sentiment, seeing where I like it best. I decided I kind of wanted to do the bottom right corner there. And then I also used some of those gold confetti sequins from Studio Katya, and I just distributed them around. I think I have 5 there. I like to do 5 usually, and I tend to tuck one under. I take usually the bigger one, and you'll see I slide it here just underneath the sentiment a little bit. And then I'm going to go all the way up the card, putting all of the little sequins wherever I think they might look nice. So I kind of keep them at a diagonal. That just appeals to me. So here we go. This is the finished card project. Thank you so much for visiting today and spending a little bit of time with me. I really appreciate it. And if you enjoyed this card, if you got a little inspiration, learned something a little different maybe, I would absolutely love it if you could hit the thumbs up for me just to help the YouTube algorithm see that, hey, maybe somebody likes this video and might want to share it with someone else. I'd really appreciate that. And if you're interested in sharing your cards, I'd love to see them on Facebook. Join my group, Artemis Made Cards and Crafty Stuff. Thank you so much, and have the absolute best day. Happy anniversary, honey. Love you.